Outdoor adventures are often seen as thrilling and full of freedom, but they can also be unforgiving. Some stories end in disaster with lives lost in the most unexpected ways. In this video, we'll dive into 5 more real and chilling tales of the worst deaths in outdoor adventures, where the dangers of nature and human choices led to the ultimate price. On March 16, 2009, 23-year-old Rhonda Casto set out for a hike along the Eagle Creek Trail in Oregon's Columbia River Gorge. She was an aspiring model and a mother to her 9-month-old daughter, Ava. That morning, she left Ava with her mother, Julia Simmons, and joined her boyfriend, Stephen Nichols, for what was supposed to be a peaceful outdoor adventure. But the day took a tragic turn, leaving Rhonda's family questioning whether what happened was truly an accident. Rhonda was excited about the hike, full of energy as she and Nichols made their way up the narrow, moss-covered trail. At first, everything seemed fine, but as they walked, the weather worsened. The path became slippery with sleet and hail, making it even more dangerous. The trail had steep drops on one side, and in one of these areas, disaster struck. Around 6 p.m., Nichols called 911, reporting that Rhonda had fallen nearly 100 feet. He later told authorities that she had been joking around, running with a towel over her shoulders when she slipped off the edge. Nichols said he climbed down the ravine, crossed an icy creek, and attempted CPR, but it was too late. He claimed he collapsed from exhaustion and cold, falling asleep next to her body before finally making his way back to call for help. While his account seemed straightforward, Rhonda's family wasn't convinced. Before the hike, she had made a chilling remark to her grandmother and aunt, saying, "He is either going to give me a ring or throw me off a cliff, ha ha ha." What seemed like a joke at the time suddenly felt like a warning. Rhonda's mother, Julia, revealed that her daughter had been unhappy in her relationship. She had considered leaving Nichols but was hesitant because of financial concerns. She wanted to move out but worried about supporting Ava, Julia said. As investigators looked into the case, more concerning details surfaced. Just months before the hike, Nichols had increased Rhonda's life insurance policy to $1 million, naming himself the beneficiary. This raised suspicion, especially given his past. Authorities uncovered that in 2003, Nichols had been accused of attempting to push his former wife off a balcony in China. Additionally, there were troubling allegations about his relationship with Rhonda's younger sister. In 2015, nearly 6 years after Rhonda's death, Nichols was arrested and charged. Authorities believed financial motives were involved, suspecting that her fall was not accidental. However, Nichols denied any wrongdoing, insisting that Rhonda had simply lost her footing. He also claimed she had been using prescription medications which, in his view, contributed to the fall. The case took a complicated turn in 2017 when legal issues arose. A key police interview with Nichols was ruled inadmissible due to how evidence had been handled. Additionally, the lead detective had destroyed critical evidence, including photos from the scene and the autopsy report. These missteps weakened the case significantly. Faced with these challenges, prosecutors offered Nichols a plea deal. He pleaded guilty to criminally negligent homicide and coercion, while the most serious charge was dropped. He received a 3-year probation sentence with credit for the 19 months he had already served. For Rhonda's family, the outcome was devastating. Julia Simmons remained convinced that her daughter's death wasn't accidental. She described Rhonda's relationship with Nichols as troubled and believed he had played a role in what happened that day. "We all told him we believe he pushed her," she said. Even though Nichols walked free, the lingering questions about Rhonda's fall have never faded. The eerie comments she made before the hike, the sudden life insurance increase, and Nichols' behavior after the incident make it difficult to accept the official conclusion. Her family continues to search for answers, believing that justice was never truly served. What if Rhonda's words before the hike weren't just a joke? What if the legal system had handled the evidence differently? Could the truth have come to light in a way that brought her family peace? Rhonda Casto's tragic death remains a mystery. Her family may never know exactly what happened that day on Eagle Creek Trail, but they will always feel that something about the story just doesn't add up. It was September 2014 in West Milford, New Jersey. Darsh Patel, a 22-year-old Rutgers University student, was hiking with 4 friends in the Upshawa Preserve, a heavily wooded area about 45 miles from New York City. Darsh, an information technology major, loved the outdoors and adventure. His friends shared the same enthusiasm, unaware that their hike would soon take a tragic turn. Black bears are common in New Jersey, but attacks on humans are extremely rare. At that time, no fatal bear attacks had occurred in the state for over 150 years. However, as Darsh and his friends walked through the forest, they came across a 300-pound male black bear. Other hikers had warned them about the bear, but despite this, they decided to take a closer look. Darsh took several photos of the animal, capturing what would be the final moments before disaster struck. From about 100 feet away, the group continued taking pictures, unaware that they had drawn the bear's attention. Typically, black bears avoid humans unless they feel threatened. However, this bear's behavior was unusual. It seemed to be watching them closely. Soon, it started following them. At first, the group walked away, hoping the bear would lose interest, but it kept coming. When it got within 15 feet, panic set in. They made the split-second decision to run in different directions, hoping to escape. Darsh, who had lost a shoe and was struggling to keep up, tried to climb a rocky outcrop. As he did, he called out to his friends, urging them to keep running. That was the last time they saw him alive. Realizing Darsh was missing, his friends immediately called the police. A search team arrived, and after 2 hours, they found Darsh's body. The bear was still there, standing over him. Officers attempted to scare the animal away, but it remained aggressive. Left with no choice, they had to put it down. A necropsy later confirmed that the bear had attacked Darsh. Traces of human tissue and clothing were found in its stomach, and Darsh's DNA was discovered on its claws and mouth. The photos from Darsh's phone were recovered, showing the bear in the moments before the attack. One eerie detail stood out. His phone had deep puncture marks from the bear's teeth. This was the first fatal bear attack in New Jersey in over a century. With an estimated 3,000 bears in the state as of 2012, wildlife experts were baffled by the bear's aggressive behavior. Black bears are not known to stalk humans, making this case highly unusual. Some suggested the bear was young and inexperienced, while others speculated that it might have been sick or injured. Darsh's friends were devastated. They had been warned by other hikers but still chose to take pictures of the bear. When it started following them, they panicked and ran, unintentionally making the situation worse. Looking back, many have questioned whether different choices could have changed the outcome. Could Darsh have survived if they had left immediately? Would staying together instead of splitting up have made a difference? These questions remain unanswered. One of the most chilling aspects of this tragedy is the bear's persistence. The recovered photos show it gradually moving closer, watching the group before finally attacking. Black bears rarely behave this way, leading to speculation about what caused this particular bear to act so aggressively. New Jersey's forests attract many hikers and outdoor enthusiasts, but this event was a grim reminder that nature can be unpredictable. While bear attacks are rare, they can happen under the right circumstances. Darsh's final moments, captured in his own photos, serve as a haunting record of that day. The events leading up to the attack remain a mystery, leaving many wondering what truly went wrong. It was 2 a.m. on February 18, 2024, in Hawaii. Kalaiakialaula, Ashley Nicole Reyes Kanakoa, a 29-year-old mother of 2, was standing near a cliff at Hawaiian Paradise Park with her boyfriend, Dylan Gap. They had spent the late-night hours together, enjoying the ocean view. It was a familiar and peaceful spot for them, but in an instant, everything changed. Without warning, Kanakoa lost her balance. The damp, slippery edge of the cliff gave way beneath her, and she fell into the dark waters below. Powerful waves crashed against the rocks as she struggled to stay afloat. Gap, in shock, ran to the edge and watched helplessly as she was swept away by the strong currents. Desperate to help, Gap grabbed a flotation device and tossed it toward her. The waves, however, were relentless, pulling her farther from shore. She clung to the raft, calling out for help. Gap tried to reassure her, but he could hear the fear in her voice. He knew time was running out. Realizing he couldn't reach her on his own, he called 911. Within 7 minutes, the Hawaii County Police arrived, but the situation was complicated. The fire truck that responded lacked the proper equipment for a water rescue. There was no flotation device, no rope, nothing that could immediately assist in bringing Kanekoa to safety. With the ocean conditions worsening, emergency responders knew they needed additional resources. They called for a rescue boat, a helicopter, and even the Coast Guard. But the circumstances were far from ideal. Strong winds and powerful waves made it nearly impossible to navigate the waters. Visibility was also poor due to the darkness. From the cliff, Gap could still see Kanekoa holding onto the flotation device. She was alive, but he couldn't do anything to reach her. Every second felt like an eternity. The rescue boat, which could have helped, didn't arrive until 90 minutes later. The helicopter couldn't be used because of the extreme weather conditions. After about an hour, unable to wait any longer, Gap put on swim fins and tried to reach her himself. But by the time he returned to shore, the rescue team had lost sight of her. She had drifted too far. Rescuers searched through the night. The Coast Guard and the fire department worked tirelessly, hoping to find her before it was too late. But as the morning light broke, the grim reality set in. At 8 a.m., her body was discovered about 4 miles away near Honolulu Landing in Pahoa. She was later pronounced dead at Hilo Medical Center. An autopsy confirmed that she had drowned, with no signs of foul play. However, the investigation was still ongoing, with authorities waiting on toxicology reports to determine if any other factors had contributed to the tragedy. Kanekoa's sudden passing devastated those who knew her. She was a loving mother, a caring friend, and someone who brought happiness to those around her. Gap described her as someone who adored her children more than anything. He had done everything he could to save her, but the severe conditions and lack of resources made it impossible. Her family, however, was left with many questions. Some of her relatives weren't convinced that the fall was entirely accidental. Her sister, Reina Kanakaole, spoke publicly about her doubts. She claimed that witnesses had heard the couple arguing before the fall and that Kanekoa had seemed fearful. These statements raised concerns, but authorities maintained that there was no evidence of wrongdoing. Beyond the tragedy itself, the incident also shed light on Hawaii's emergency response system. Many questioned why the fire department lacked basic rescue equipment. Had there been a proper flotation device or rope, could Kanekoa have been saved? And why did it take so long for the rescue boat to arrive? Gap struggled with overwhelming grief, but he was also frustrated. The image of Kanekoa struggling in the water, calling for help, was something he would never forget. He couldn't shake the thought that she might have survived if help had come sooner. For those who loved her, the pain of losing her was made worse by the lingering question of whether this could have been prevented. Calls for change have grown, with many urging officials to improve emergency response efforts to avoid similar tragedies in the future. On August 15, 2021, a family of 3 set off on a hike through the Sierra National Forest in California. The group included 45-year-old Jonathan Garish, a British software engineer who worked at Snapchat, his wife, 31-year-old Ellen Chung, a yoga instructor, and their 1-year-old daughter Miju. They were also joined by their dog, Oski. The family had recently moved to Mariposa, a small town near the Sierra foothills, and often explored nearby trails. That morning, they started their hike at the Heights Cove Loop trailhead, a remote area of the forest. They left their truck near the entrance, which would later serve as a key point in the investigation. The weather was pleasant at first, with temperatures in the mid-70s. However, as the day progressed, the heat intensified. By the afternoon, temperatures had soared to 109 degrees Fahrenheit, making conditions extremely dangerous. The family planned to complete an 8.5-mile loop, but the combination of high temperatures and lack of shade made the journey much more difficult than expected. Investigators later found that Jonathan and Ellen had used a hiking app to map out their route, but they were unaware of how quickly the heat could rise in that area. The Sierra Nevada mountains are known for steep trails, and the Heights Cove Loop has long stretches with little to no shade. One of the biggest challenges they faced was the lack of water. The only supply they had was an 85-ounce Camelback bladder. By the time authorities found them, it was completely empty. There were no other water sources nearby. Investigators also found a baby formula bottle between them, further indicating that dehydration played a major role in what happened. At some point, the extreme conditions likely began affecting Miju first. Infants are especially vulnerable to heat, and her parents would have immediately realized the danger. A survival expert later suggested that Jonathan and Ellen may have panicked and rushed to find help. Given the tough terrain, they may have tried to move quickly, hoping to reach a safer area. Experts believe that when one of them could no longer continue, they stayed behind with Miju and Oski while the other attempted to go for help. But the scorching heat made survival nearly impossible. Hyperthermia, a condition where the body overheats and can no longer cool itself down, can be fatal in just a few hours under extreme conditions. The rising temperatures likely made it impossible for them to continue, and they eventually lost consciousness due to heat exhaustion. Search teams discovered their bodies 2 days later, on August 17th, after a missing persons report was filed on August 16th. They were found on a steep section of the Savage Lundy Trail, about 1.6 miles from their vehicle. Oski was lying next to them, also affected by the extreme conditions. Investigators determined that they were critically underprepared for the hike. Their water supply was insufficient for the high temperatures, and the rough terrain made it even more difficult to cope with the heat. A survival expert noted that in such conditions, hikers should drink at least 1 liter of water per hour to stay safe. At first, authorities explored other possible causes. The area has abandoned mines that could emit toxic gas, and there were concerns about harmful algae in nearby water sources. However, tests showed no signs of contamination. There were also no injuries or evidence of foul play, ruling out any outside interference. For weeks, uncertainty surrounded the case. Investigators considered various possibilities, including exposure to toxic substances, but eventually, all evidence pointed to heat-related causes. The extreme temperatures and lack of hydration ultimately led to their deaths. Oski's exact cause of death was not confirmed, but it is believed that the high temperatures affected the dog as well. Following the tragedy, the Mariposa County Sheriff's Office issued a statement urging hikers to take extra precautions, especially in extreme heat. Officials emphasized the importance of checking weather forecasts, carrying enough water, and avoiding strenuous hikes in dangerously hot conditions. Locals who were familiar with the area noted that most people avoid hiking in that region during summer because of the intense heat. Unfortunately, the family, being new to the area, did not realize how dangerous it could be. Jonathan, Ellen, Miju, and Oski's deaths were heartbreaking for their loved ones. Their relatives expressed deep sorrow, remembering them as a loving and adventurous family. The tragedy serves as a warning about the risks of hiking in extreme weather and the importance of being fully prepared before venturing into remote areas. It was August 10, 2019, when 61-year-old Graham Bateman, a sales director from Glossop, Derbyshire, set out for a hike in the La Concha mountain range near Marbella, Spain. Known for its breathtaking views of the Mediterranean, Gibraltar, and even Morocco on clear days, La Concha is a popular destination for hikers. For Graham, an experienced walker who regularly covered 20 to 30 miles a day, this trek seemed like just another challenge. But what started as a routine hike turned into a tragic accident that shocked his family and friends. Graham had been in Spain on a short holiday with his wife and stepson. His plan for the day was simple: reach the summit, take in the view, and head back. He set off with confidence, but as the day wore on, the intense summer heat made the journey far more difficult than he had expected. By midday, Graham reached the top and messaged his family confirming his arrival. He even sent a photo from the summit. But in his message, he also mentioned the extreme heat, a sign that he may have underestimated how tough the descent would be. As the hours passed, his messages became more concerning. He told his wife he was lost, running low on water and feeling weak from dehydration. By 3 p.m., he reported falling and scraping his legs. At this point, he was struggling to navigate the rocky terrain safely. His final message stated that he had found some shade to rest, but he felt disoriented and overwhelmed. Then, at 4:35 p.m., his phone battery died, cutting off all communication. Graham's wife immediately contacted authorities, but efforts to locate him were delayed due to language barriers. A rescue helicopter was deployed that evening, and although searchers believed they had spotted him, when they landed, he was nowhere to be found. Meanwhile, Graham's stepson, Andrew Brooks, flew to Spain to assist with the search. But upon landing, he received devastating news. The authorities had found his stepfather's body. Investigators determined that Graham had fallen off the mountain's edge. However, it wasn't the fall that caused his death. His backpack had become entangled in a tree, and the straps wrapped around his neck, leaving him unable to free himself. The pressure from the straps ultimately led to his passing. The coroner's report later confirmed that as he grew more disoriented, Graham had likely moved from his original resting spot in search of a way out. This may have led him to lose his footing and fall. The entire incident was a tragic accident, one that no one could have predicted. Graham's death deeply affected those who knew him. As a sales director at prestigious textiles for over 15 years, he was well respected in his industry. Colleagues from the British Interior Textiles Association, or BITA, remembered him as a kind and energetic man whose presence brightened any room. Friends and family described him as warm, funny, and full of life. His sudden passing left a void that could never be filled. La Concha, while not the tallest peak, has claimed lives before. The 4,000-foot summit may seem manageable, but the steep, rugged terrain can be deceptive. The descent is particularly tricky, and in the scorching summer months, dehydration and disorientation are real dangers. Over the years, authorities have installed more signposts to guide hikers, but the risks remain, especially for those unfamiliar with the area. Graham's story is a heartbreaking reminder of how unpredictable nature can be. Despite his experience and preparation, the harsh conditions proved too much. His loss left his family with many unanswered questions. Could the rescue response have been faster? Had he stayed in one place, would he have been found in time? If there had been clearer communication, would the outcome have been different? Sadly, those answers will never be known. What remains is the memory of a man who lived life to the fullest and was deeply loved. His passing was an unimaginable tragedy, but his impact on those around him will never be forgotten.